Hello to all you big children out there. Konnichiwa and welcome to the Tokyo Joshi Pod, your weekly dose of everything TJPW. I'm your host Andy Zeich, and today we have the first bonus episode of 2026. A little bit later in January than I anticipated, but with the holidays, with traveling, time has really just ended up flying by already. I can't believe it's already almost the end of January. The first month of 2026 is almost already done. If you are new here, if this is the first episode you happen to be listening to, weekly Tokyo Joshi Pod episodes drop every Friday covering current events. I release these bonus episodes usually like once a month and cover a wide variety of different things. The last two were, one of them was a beginner's guide to TJPW, so if you are very new to TJPW, go ahead and check that one out. And then there was also an interview conducted in December between myself and Hype Talk TV, Alessandro. That's a really great listen as well. I do want to continue doing these bonus episodes once a month in the future this year. I have some really cool ideas planned already, but on this episode, we're going to start up our first edition of something I'm calling TJPW Rewind. This is an idea I had to look back on all of the rich history of TJPW, watch some of these historic shows from the past, and what better place to start than all the way back at the very, very beginning. This week marks the 13th anniversary of TJPW's very first show. Now, this can be a little bit disputed depending on who you ask or what you find online. There are different kind of important dates in the beginning of TJPW. Sometimes you'll see it listed in 2012 when the company was first introduced and kind of brought onto the scene. Sometimes you'll see the January 2013 date. That is when TJPW started to hold their first mat-based wrestling events, what they were calling the pre-events. And then in December of 2013, TJPW held their first official solo-produced show inside of a wrestling ring. We're going to talk about all of that today, but like I said, this week, in my opinion, this week marks the 13th anniversary of TJPW's very first show, January 30th of 2013 to be exact, so this coming Friday. I wanted to look back at that show because I've never seen it before, and it kind of is like the humble beginnings of what TJPW has become today. And while I was researching this episode, I discovered that all of the shows from this first, I don't know if you'd call it like a tour, the first like year in existence, I guess you would say, all through 2013, all of these shows are under 20 minutes. So it's really easy to dive right on in, knock a lot of these shows out if you want to watch along, if you want to go ahead and pause the episode and watch some of those and then come back to this. But they're pretty readily available as well. You can find them online. But let's go ahead and rewind all the way back to 2013 and chat about TJPW's first year of shows. In 2013, TJPW held a total of 7 shows for their first year of existence, and there's a couple of familiar names on these shows that are still floating around in the company today. Each of these shows are available online. You do have to do a little bit of a Google search to dig them up, but they are available on the internet. Some of the individual matches are actually also available on Wrestle Universe. You just have to go to the TJPW section and then scroll like all the way down to the very beginning of the list of shows. But a few of these matches are on there. You could also, I guess, use the search function. That probably makes a little bit more sense. Thinking that I probably should have done that now, but whatever. You live and you learn. But these are almost all readily available, and they each have about 2 or 3 matches on them, and most of them take place in the same small venue. It's worth noting that at first, for these pre-events, quote unquote, is what TJPW calls them, they didn't use a wrestling ring. They used just a mat in the center of a group of people. It was mat-based wrestling, and they initially ran alongside a lot of live musical performances or idol performances. But before we get to that first mat-based wrestling event on January 30th, I want to talk just a little teeny bit about TJPW's beginnings. TJPW was officially announced on June 4th of 2012 by DDT Pro Wrestling, and it was set to be run by Tetsuya Koda, who was coming off of running Ice Ribbon and Neo Japan Ladies Pro Wrestling. Koda was going to be joined by a wrestler by the name of Nozomi. 4 of the first recruits in TJPW include familiar faces like Miyu Yamashita and Shoko Nakajima, and then also 2 other women by the name of Kana and Chikage Kiba. These four ladies were all trained by Nozomi herself, but Nozomi actually leaves the company prior to any of the women kind of stepping foot into a ring or stepping foot onto a mat, I guess if it were. Nozomi leaves the company on November 30th of 2012. That's the very same day that they announced these four trainees, or they introduced these four trainees at a press conference. So certainly an interesting, important day in the history of TJPW. After announcing the company, after introducing the trainees and getting them all up and running, TJPW decides to run a series of what they call pre-events. Now, pre-events versus is this actually an event, your mileage will vary. If you go on to Cage Match, you will see these events listed just like any other event. The biggest differences is that these are all mat-based wrestling, like I mentioned. The venues are fairly small compared to some of the bigger venues that TJPW would end up running, and the match cards are fairly small as well. Obviously, there's only 4 wrestlers to the promotion at the very beginning, so there's only so many match constructions that you can have, right? So a lot of these initial shows will only have about 2 matches on them. But starting at the very, very beginning, we have TJPW, the first meeting. And as you'll see, a lot of these shows are quickly, like in succession, they're called the first meeting, the second meeting, the third meeting. So the titles weren't too creative, but for TJPW the first meeting, this is the one that we are about to hit the anniversary of. This event took place on January 30th, 2013, so we are quickly approaching the 13th anniversary. This one emanated from the Akihabara Twin Box in Tokyo, pretty much like a very small event space. I imagine you'd use it for like idol concerts or things like that. There were 150 people that attended this event, and TJPW listed that as a full house. It's worth noting that for these first couple of shows, TJPW actually ran free admission. You didn't have to buy a ticket to attend these shows. TJPW/DDT was interested in just bringing some folks in the door, introducing these ladies to wrestling fans, and trying to find their footing. So a smart tactic, I would say. As I mentioned, no ring for this. We just have mat-based wrestling, and we have a couple of live musical performances from some idol units. There were 3 groups, as a matter of fact. None of these performances are on any of the tapes that are out there if you look at them, probably due to just, I don't know, it's maybe copyright issues or something like that. But TJPW, right from the get-go, was integrating different idol groups and variety of idol groups alongside their wrestling. This show had 2 matches on it. The first one was a Sambo rules match. Sambo is basically like a variation of judo. That was my understanding from my research, or at least like an offshoot of judo. And we had a singles match here contested under Sambo rules. Chikage Kiba, one of our 4 initial TJPW trainees, took on quite a familiar face in Daisuke Kiso. Kiso was a DDT ref at the time. Obviously, we know Daisuke Kiso would go on to be a TJPW ref. He still refs in DDT as well. But Daisuke Kiso was thrown into this. He is a former Sambo competitor himself, and essentially he had to jump in here because only 3 of the trainees were ready at this point in time. So there's a bit of an odd number of trainees. What can you really do? So anyway, Kiso jumps in just to kind of help bridge the gap until Shoko Nakajima was ready to debut. Chikage Kiba ends up wrestling with TJPW for quite a while. She doesn't graduate from the company until 2018. So about 5 years worth of time in TJPW. She enters to some sort of rock music, and both of them, because this is a Sambo rules style match, they are wearing more martial arts style attire, Sambo style attire. This is primarily like mat-based wrestling, amateur wrestling style matchup. There's a lot of grappling, a lot of takedowns. Obviously, Kiso has a bit of an advantage here. He's just a little bit bigger than Kiba was, but Kiba holds her own quite well. This match, though, is purely an exhibition match, which means that there is no winner or loser. So after 3 minutes, we do have a time limit draw and the bell rings. And then our second of 2 matches on this show is a singles match between Miyu Yamashita, very familiar name to us in TJPW these days, taking on an individual by the name of Kana. Kana is different than the performer who would go on to be known as Asuka in WWE shortly after this era, around 2013. I believe Asuka debuted in NXT not too long after this. I don't know the exact date, but this Kana is a different competitor. Kana is actually still wrestling today. She currently wrestles in the promotion called PPP, Triple P, and she wrestles as a competitor by the name of Droog K. Kana graduated from TJPW shortly after this year. She graduated in 2016, and then, from my understanding, took a little bit of a break from pro wrestling, and then re-debuted with Triple P maybe 3 years ago, something like that. Kana enters to like hard rock, punk rock, almost like metal style music, and Yamashita enters to Party Rock Anthem by LMFAO. I am not kidding. She dances to it. It's really strange to see. That is not the song from 2013 that I would have pegged Miyu Yamashita to have on the top of her playlist. Kana is wearing like full pants and like a camo style top, very like alt looking or like punk rock looking. Miyu comes out in like ballerina or like figure skater type of gear. That's the only way I could describe it. It's also very weird to see this and know what we know about Yamashita today. But it's got this like big skirt or like tutu on it. It's really really odd to see. Kiso is our referee for this match as well, so he pulls a quick costume change and comes running out. This one starts with a lockup. Kana is working over the leg of Yamashita. Yamashita ends up hitting a quick DDT for 2. We get a bit of a slugfest in the center of the mat, which leads to a really nice Boston Crab from Kana. Yamashita is able to escape it, starts kicking a little bit, and then hits a skull kick, or at the time, TJPW referred to it as a kick to the face, which I thought was kind of funny. And Yamashita wins this match in 3 minutes and 36 seconds. After this one is over, they do bow to the crowd. Miyu gets on the microphone, thanks the crowd. She is crying a little bit. It is her debut, after all. And then she ends up inviting all of the idol groups out because she says, I love idols, and this might be a little bit shameless, but I want all these idols to come out, and I want to have a moment where we sing and dance together. So that's what ends up happening to close out this show. Believe it or not, there are backstage comments for a lot of these events as well. So coming off of this first meeting event, all of the 3 women are interviewed. They mentioned just being nervous about the debut, obviously, but also excited and wanting to continue. And then Tetsuya Koda is also giving some backstage comments as well. He mentions a very successful pre-event and a desire to just keep pushing the trainees to do their best. He's really excited. He thought overall, really good start to what TJPW would become. Like I mentioned, these shows are only like 15 to 20 minutes in length, some of them even less than that. This one is really interesting to see. I wouldn't say it's like a must-see, go out of your way to go and find it and watch it, but the beginnings are here, right? Like we have Yamashita, we have idols that are being integrated into the show. There's a lot of kicking from Yamashita. That was something that from right from the get-go she was on board with. And, it might be worth seeking out just to see Yamashita and Kana. I think that that's probably a really interesting match, just so you could see like the night and day look that Yamashita has here compared to what she would become today. But really interesting stuff if you want to seek it out just for like the historical factor alone. That brings us to our second event of TJPW's history, TJPW The Second Meeting, taking place on March 25th, 2013 from the Shibuya Deseo in Tokyo. This is also a small event space, probably one where idols would perform. Attendance for this one was 100 people. This was also a full house, and again, free tickets, free admission distributed for this one. Again, just trying to get that get the name out there, get that word of mouth growing, get people interested in our 3 trainees, soon to be 4 trainees. Same deal here, no ring, mat-based wrestling. There are some idol groups as well, 3 groups on this show, but none that happen to be on the tape that you can see. This event's kind of interesting because essentially they just run back the first event in a different venue. And I don't know if that's because they just wanted to have some additional reps under each of the competitors' belts and just kind of get the same thing going. Or maybe they thought, hey, we're in a new venue. Maybe we have some different people that came to see this. Like almost like the old school, like 1980s house show mentality. You tour the country and kind of put on the same matches over and over again. I guess that still happens today in house shows, if any house shows are still run. But anyway, we essentially run it back. So we have a Sambo rules match between Chikage Kiba and Daisuke Kiso. Lots of grappling, lots of submissions, lots of takedowns. Again, we hit the 3-minute time limit draw since this is just an exhibition match. And then the second match again saw Miyu Yamashita take on Kana in a singles contest. Miyu still coming out to LMFAO and dancing. I don't know how that's not on the internet more. Maybe it's just such an obscure reference, but it is so interesting to me. It is so like an about face of what Yamashita represents today. It's so unique to see that. This match, a little bit different than their first one. Fairly even lockup at the start of things. They do some chain wrestling in this like very small amount of space that they have. Yamashita is a lot more like kicky this time around. She's definitely leaning into that background that she has. Kana throwing a lot more strikes and some really strong forearms. We do see Kana throw on the Boston Crab once again. Yamashita able to escape it, and then she does kick her way to victory once again. This match going 4 minutes and 36 seconds. Yamashita ends it with a penalty kick, which TJPW is calling the running kick. I think this is something that would later become the Crash Rabbit Heat. After the match is over, Miyu does the same shtick. She invites the idols out again to sing and dance with everybody, and TJPW announced their third show for April. There are backstage comments for this second meeting show as well. Everyone is looking forward to that third show in April, and Kana says she wants to beat Yamashita. She's now lost 2 in a row to Yamashita, so the first thing on her to-do list is to beat Miyu Yamashita. I think it's really interesting that 2 shows in, each of the women are already really well-defined characters, like right from the jump. You have your more traditional grappler in Kiba. Of course, she's only been put into 2 Sambo matches, so it's difficult to see what her pro wrestling skills look like, but you have that traditional grappler style. You have more of the anti-authority or like alt-rock, punk rock style Kana. And then you have Yamashita, who is slowly establishing herself or kind of trying to find herself. She has a little bit of the like cutesy dancing, but then also some of the serious striking style as well. The third show on the calendar, TJPW, the third meeting, takes place in April, on the 26th of April, 2013. Same venue, the Shibuya Deseo, and attendance here was a little bit more, 120 people crammed in here for a full house, and this was the first event that TJPW started to sell some tickets for as well. Again, same deal, map-based wrestling, live music from some idol groups. There were 2 of them on this show. And for this one, the card changes up a little bit. We have 2 matches, but we have a couple of different competitors get mixed in, a couple of different matchups. We start with a Karate Rules match between Miyu Yamashita and a competitor by the name of Hikaru Nakajima. No relation to Shoko Nakajima. This is not Shoko just yet. Hikaru is actually a trained karate fighter. Yamashita a little bit more serious for this matchup since it is Karate Rules, but she is still coming out to LMFAO, which I think is just so bizarre to see. This is mostly just some punches and some kicks, definitely more along the lines of what present day Yamashita is. Towards the end of this, for like the final minute, they turn up some intensity and they really start like laying it into one another. But this is just an exhibition once again, so this does end in a 3-minute time limit draw. And then our second contest, we see a singles match between Chikage Kiba in her first pro wrestling match, taking on Kana. Kiba enters in her wrestling gear for the first time. It's all purple. She carries a parasol. She has a pretty cool look. They start out grappling with each other. This makes sense for what we know about Kiba up to this point in time, being a more of a grappler-based wrestler. Kana tries to kind of roll up Kiba at certain times, get out of these like grapple maneuvers. Kiba is able to lock in a really nice knee bar, though, and that picks up the victory for her via submission at 4 minutes and 1 second. Kiba closes us out here, gets on the microphone and mentions having success in her first pro wrestling match and that she wants to beat Yamashita and become the ace of TJPW. Interesting that this is the first time we're hearing the phrase ace thrown around, and it's coming from Chikage Kiba. They also celebrate Nakajima's birthday. Hikaru Nakajima, the karate trained fighter, or the trained karate fighter, I should say. Apparently it was her birthday, and so they celebrate her birthday with a cake. And then they actually announced their 4th show for June. In the backstage comments for this third event, both Kiba and Kana say that they want to face Yamashita. Yamashita is there. Basically, all of these were done like together, all of these backstage comments. They didn't do like individual comments yet at this point. So all of these ladies are standing there together. So Kiba and Kana say they both want to face Yamashita. Yamashita basically says, bring it on. Like, I'm already undefeated here, or at least mostly undefeated with this Karate Rules match thrown in. So she says, bring it on. I'm ready to show I'm the best one here. Nice to see some different matchups on this show. I think it's really curious that Kana is presented as this really like tough competitor, but she's now winless. She is 0-3. So I'm really curious to trace through the rest of the year and see where Kana lands for us. The next show, TJPW the fourth meeting, takes place on June 6th of 2013. Same venue, the Shibuya Deseo. Attendance for this one even a little bit higher, 140. So another full house for TJPW in their fourth show. Same type of deal, no ring. We had 4 idol groups on this one, but a little bit of a noteworthy event because Shoko Nakajima is introduced at the beginning of this event. And from that introduction, Shoko is actually wrestling in our first match. We have a singles match between Kana and Shoko Nakajima. Shoko comes out, she doesn't even have gear. She's basically just wearing like a t-shirt and shorts, just like all black clothes. It's almost like her training gear or like her athletic gear. And you can see Shoko in there. It sounds kind of weird to say, but like it's almost like a shell of what Shoko Nakajima will become, both in like visual look, but also personality, move set, charisma. Like you can see Shoko Nakajima in there. It's just a very like unevolved version of her. Shoko charges at the bell and tries to come right at Kana, so that you see what I mean when I say we see Shoko Nakajima in there. Kana, though, is able to deck her with a forearm almost instantly, and then she pins her, but this is only an exhibition match, though, so this match will continue despite the pinfall. Kana remains in control. Shoko charges her like kind of into the crowd. Think like Choco Pro, as you can like push somebody into the people that are just like sitting around the mat. And then at one point she actually pushes Kiso out of the way too. So Nakajima really making a statement in her first appearance here for TJPW. It's all for nothing though, as Kana is able to eventually lock in her Boston Crab submission and Shoko Nakajima taps out. However, again, exhibition match, so this is going to continue for Shoko. Poor Shoko. Kana basically just continues to abuse Shoko until we hit the 3-minute time limit draw. I thought Kana looked great in this matchup. I know it's only been 3 matches that we've seen of her, but this is certainly one that she was positioned as a much stronger competitor. Shoko got her butt whooped here, and that is like crazy to think about, knowing what she will become. Like, even watching some of these early matches, you can see that Yamashita even looks pretty good, or at least is being presented as pretty powerful in the very early going. It is odd to see Nakajima just get her butt kicked really pillar to post for 3 minutes. Our second match of this show saw Miyu Yamashita take on Chikage Kiba. Worth noting that Miyu is no longer entering to Party Rock Anthem, boo, but she does enter to a different song, which I guess is like a Japanese, like a mainstream Japanese song. That's what I'm trying to say. I don't know what it is, but it gives me vibes of that song Rasputin by Boney M, if you know that one. She's still dancing. She's actually dancing even more, which is still so interesting to see. Yamashita starts out really intense in this matchup. A lot of kicks from Yamashita. Kiba locks in a very early armbar submission, and these two are pretty even. It was a matchup of submission versus striking. Yamashita is able to get the upper hand on Kiba, though, hit a couple of kicks and then a penalty kick, and wins this one at 4 minutes and 18 seconds. After this match is over, Yamashita declares herself as the ace, now having beaten Kana twice and Kiba, and she announces the 5th show coming up in July. Backstage comments here, both Kiba and Kana absolutely reject Miyu's ace claim. They are not buying into that. They think that each of them can be the ace in their own regard. Shoko also gave some brief comments saying that she really only brought 1% to her match. Next time she's going to bring 100%. She also recognizes that she needs to get her hands on some gear. Overall, this was wild to see Nakajima like this. It really was. I know, look, it's the first match of her career, so like obviously you're not going to see anything crazy, but like I said, Yamashita already looks so good, or at least like someone who has so much promise to her, and the company right out of the gate is positioning her very strongly, and Nakajima it just didn't seem that way in any way, and that will come to change really quickly here. But just really interesting to see Nakajima knowing, today's Nakajima being able to wrestle a broomstick and have a great match, right? Or really bully someone pillar to post, and just kind of see the tides turn there on Nakajima was very interesting. The fifth event of 2013, TJPW's The Fifth Meeting, took place on July 11th, 2013, same venue, the Shibuya Deseo. Another full house here, 130 folks attended this one. I couldn't find a video for this one though, so I did have to use only the write-up that was available on the TJPW website. It did mention that there were 3 idol groups present, and then also they introduced a new competitor by the name of Ayumi Takada. More on her in a little bit. There were 2 matches. Obviously, I can't go too much in detail not having seen them, but we did see a singles match between Yamashita and Nakajima. That's one I certainly would have liked to have seen. From the images, Shoko apparently has her gear sorted out. Yamashita wins this one by pinning Shoko after a penalty kick, which TJPW is calling at this point in time the soccer ball kick, in 3 minutes and 8 seconds. And then our second singles match, Chikage Kiba takes on Kana. Kiba wins this match with a roll-up in 5 minutes and 20 seconds. Afterwards, all of the competitors are fighting over who is the ace once again, except for Nakajima, who just says that she just wants to win a match. That's her first goal, which, start out strong, start out with an achievable goal, right? Apparently, Shingo Takagi, though, ends this show. He makes an appearance and announces that all 4 of these trainees will compete in a dark match at the upcoming DDT Ryogoku Kokugikan event on August 17th of 2013, inside of a wrestling ring. Worth noting that. Now, as I was prepping for this episode, quite frankly, I didn't know that they were invited to take part in the DDT show on August 17th in that dark match in my research. I was just focusing on TJPW, but I've been enjoying kind of charting this journey through the first 7 months of the year that I decided to throw on this DDT show, at least this one match. So we're going to briefly talk about DDT, Progress and Harmony of Wrestling. This took place on August 17th, 2013 from the Ryogoku Kokugikan. According to Cage Match, 8,500 people attended this. Now, you can debate the accuracy of Cage Match. I won't argue on that, but about 8,500 people, it seems high, but at the same time, who knows? Maybe that was the case. We're talking 13 years ago, right? Things were very, very different 13 years ago. So this match is just a dark match, meaning it's like a pre-show match or one that is this match is readily available on Wrestle Universe. If you go find this event, this DDT Progress and Harmony Wrestling event, it is slotted in the DDT category. So it is available to watch, but they do consider it a dark match just because it is like a pre-show match, if you will. The way that these ladies divided themselves for the tag match, we saw Chikage Kiba team with Kana, and they took on Miyu Yamashita and Shoko Nakajima. Imagine that pairing today. That would be insane. Of course, they get entrances on the main stage. This is a much bigger show, right, at the Ryogoku Kokugikan. This is technically all 4 of these ladies' in-ring debut at this dark match. And they are introduced by this, anime idol who has this, really creepy, realistic-looking fake head. Don't think any sort of mascot character that we've seen in TJPW. You have to think if you go to Disneyland or whatever, you watch Disneyland videos and you see the Incredibles walking around in costume. It's basically like a human person, right? Like a human body, like a real life person, and they're wearing this appropriately sized plastic head instead of showing their actual face. It's bizarre. And as you watch this or as you see pictures, you might be thinking, who the heck is this creepy looking woman? Well, this is Minami Momochi. Minami Momochi is the first ever ring announcer for TJPW. In some of the previous shows that we were just talking about, Momochi is somewhat present, obviously with the restricted camera angles, the smaller space, it's hard to see her. You can hear her, of course, as she introduces some of the competitors, but Momochi kind of found her way into TJPW, started to align herself in the early going as a lot of these idol groups were coming in. Momochi by trade is idol/DJ. I believe that she still does that up to today. But Momochi was actually with TJPW from their start in 2013 all the way up through 2017 when she eventually graduated from the company. Following her graduation, we actually saw Yuki Aino become the ring announcer. And of course, we know Yuki Aino goes on to become an in-ring competitor, thanks in part to her sister. And then we see Sayuri Namba come in, and then Namba graduates, and now we have Rise Shirai. So, brief history lesson on the 4 ring announcers for TJPW. During the entrances here, Yamashita, of course, is dancing once again, and since she is teaming with Nakajima, she convinces Nakajima to dance with her. So, in this weird alternate universe, as I'm watching this, I'm like, I wonder if there's a world where these two become the Up Girls or become like some facet of whatever the idol, like the in-house idol group would be for TJPW. It's interesting. I don't know if I want to go down that rabbit hole. Yamashita has changed up her gear a little bit. She's now wearing this like two-piece pink gear. She still has like a skirt on, and it's not quite that maroon look that she's come to wear nowadays. It is very bright, like neon pink. This is the first look that I'm seeing of Shoko Nakajima's gear, given that fifth meeting show isn't readily available, and she's in like all red and white. Definitely a different look from what she comes to wear as the big kaiju. All of these women, though, get streamers on this big event, which I thought was a really nice touch from the crowd. Yamashita and Kiba start out with a little bit of chain wrestling. Nakajima and Kana tag in. Shoko wrestling this like very energetic, chaotic style, which I guess still rings true today. It's you can see some of her moves still in this moveset back in the day. Kana and Kiba then take turns beating on Shoko, given she is like the least tenured of the four trainees. She debuted the latest. Yamashita comes back in for her team. We end up seeing different pairings of all four of these ladies. Really like a showcase match is probably the best way you would describe it. Kana picks up the victory for her team by submitting Nakajima with a Boston Crab at 7 minutes and 19 seconds. These women do give some comments backstage. Actually, Momochi was also there. They just talk about how big of an achievement this was, their in-ring wrestling debuts, how this is really just the beginning, and, you know, who would have known what TJPW would come to be today, right? Like, none of these women did, but they started to set the foundation here, the pillars, if you will, right? At least two of them. So, really interesting to see this match. This one is available on Wrestle Universe. I would suggest you go seek it out, not necessarily because it's like a 5-star quality match or anything like that, although it is pretty good. I would just recommend because it is so readily available to see on Wrestle Universe, and it's historically significant. It is the in-ring debut, not on a wrestling mat, but actually between 4 posts and ropes for all 4 of these ladies, in particular Yamashita and Nakajima, who would go on to have and are still having such historically significant careers for TJPW, and quite frankly, 2 of the best in the business overall. So coming off these in-ring debuts, what's next for TJPW? Well, that would be TJPW the 6th meeting. Back at the Shibuya Deseo, no ring again. This one's on October 18th, so about 2-ish months after that in-ring debut. Attendance here back to a smaller size, 120, but still holding strong, holding consistent throughout 2013. Again, we get some idol groups, 3 to be exact, and we actually get 2 new introductions as well. We see the introduction of Yuka Sakazaki and an individual by the name of Ruriko Ishizawa. And you might be thinking, who the heck is Ruriko Ishizawa? Well, that is the real name of Rika Tatsumi. So it is October of 2013 where we see the 3rd and the 4th pillar of TJPW make their first appearance. They didn't wrestle on this show, but that is shortly to come for both of these ladies. Shoko Nakajima was also entrusted with the very important announcement to announce to this crowd of 120 that TJPW will be officially launching on December 1st. That officially launching, of course, there's been 6 shows up to this point, right? But the first in-ring show for TJPW will be taking place on December 1st. This show, though, the 6th meeting, we had again 2 matches, a singles contest between Chikage Kiba and Shoko Nakajima. Shoko was actually wrestling a little bit better here. She was in early control, but Kiba was quickly able to wrestle that control away from her, literally and figuratively speaking, with a lot of her grappling style techniques. She locks in a really early armbar. Shoko does go back on the attack briefly. She, for some reason, decides to just start headbutting Kiba, and that was like these gnarly headbutts right to the head, I guess I should say, but just really gnarly looking headbutts. She also busts out a drop kick in this small little mat area, which was really cool. Down through the wire of this one, they end up trading roll-ups, and Kiba is able to roll up Shoko at 4 minutes and 40 seconds. Our second contest, once again meeting in a singles contest, Miyu Yamashita and Kana. And now having seen Yamashita in these like early ring gears, these early like personas, music, dancing, right? I kind of wonder that when Yamashita graduates or retires, hopefully that is, no time in the near future, but eventually when Yamashita decides to graduate or retire, if we'll see some of these iterations come around again. As you watch a lot of like graduation shows, especially for competitors that have been tenured for so long within TJPW or outside of TJPW, you'll always see references to previous personas, previous ring gear attire. Like I'm thinking when Nao Kakuta retired, she had a lot of members of the roster wear like her old ring gear, which was kind of funny. So I wonder if any of this will be referenced when Yamashita eventually does retire and hang up the boots. I think that would be a lot of fun. Miyu starts this one out strong with a lot of kicks and some headlocks. Kana is able to turn the tide, working the leg a little bit, which ended up being quite smart because Yamashita wasn't able to then kick. She started to stumble a little bit when trying to kick using her legs after that. A lot of those leg bars and submission maneuvers, a lot of those kicks to the legs from Kana. Kana continues to work the legs and the back. You can tell she's really softening up Yamashita for that Boston Crab. Yamashita, though, is somehow able to power up, fight through the pain, kick Kana down to the mat, and she delivers a penalty kick, which TJPW calls the soccer ball kick still at this point in time, and wins this one at 5 minutes and 50 seconds. Just our second match that was over 5 minutes to this point in TJPW's history, if you don't count the DDT dark match. Afterwards, Yamashita says that she will beat Kiba on the December 1st show. So essentially, these two matches that we saw today, Kiba versus Nakajima, Yamashita versus Kana, the winners of these go on to face each other in the main event of that first launch show, that December 1st show. So Yamashita here is saying that she plans to beat Kiba at that show, really cement herself as the ace. Backstage, everyone talks about that December 1st show. Kana says that she wants to eventually do some hardcore matches, which is an interesting comment. Nakajima cites Kaori Yoneyama as some of her inspiration, says that she wants to start wrestling more of an aerial style. That will certainly come to pass, as we know. Yamashita said that she looks up to Yuzuki Aikawa, and then Kiba says that she wants to continue including Sambo in her wrestling style. Again, I think it's really neat that we have 4 defined wrestlers that are starting off this promotion, right? You have the punk rock woman in Kana, you have the grappler in Kiba, the like aerial chaos that is Nakajima, or at least will become Nakajima, and then the striking ace in Yamashita. Something that's interesting to me watching a lot of these shows, or all of these shows for the very first time, is Kana and Kiba both show a lot of promise. It's really interesting to me that they get passed by quite quickly by Yuka and Rika as the other 2 pillars of the company, and Kana and Kiba kind of almost like fall to the wayside and aren't remembered as 2 of the 4 that launched the company. Yuka and Rika kind of surpass them or supplant them as the 4 pillars of TJPW, which is kind of interesting to me. I'd have to watch a little bit more once Yuka and Rika debut to really understand the why behind that. This all brings us to December 1st, 2013. TJPW puts on their official launch show at the Kitazawa Town Hall in Tokyo. This is actually still a venue that TJPW runs today, which is pretty cool. They were just there back in September of 2025. They put on their quote-unquote debut show, their launch show, TJPW Raising an Army. They were able to sell out the Kitazawa Town Hall. 294 were in attendance for this one, and a bit unfortunate, but this one is a little bit incomplete online. It's hard to find a lot of it. I was only able to find the middle match of the 3 matches, a tag team match. Apparently there were some musical and idol segments as well beforehand. TJPW announced a brand new trainee they're taking in, Eri Wakamatsu, who used to wrestle in Ice Ribbon at the time. So they're basically bringing in a competitor from a competitive Joshi promotion. She announced that she would be joining TJPW as a trainee, but that she couldn't carry on her name, just given that it belonged to Ice Ribbon, I guess. And she would eventually come to debut as Erin. So this launch show had 3 matches on it. It opened up with a singles contest between Kana and the debuting Ayumi Takada. Takada is like a former singer or idol. That's what my research shows me here. She ends up graduating from TJPW in 2014, so she does not stick around for a while. I don't know why. I'd have to do a little bit more research or watch a little bit more of her career. Perhaps she went back into the like singing idol world. But she's not around for too long. She's only around for less than a year. Going off of the write-ups and the images for this match, I see that Kana enters with an airsoft rifle, which is really interesting. I guess it fits her persona quite well, though. She does make fairly quick work of Ayumi. She submits her with a Boston Crab at 4 minutes and 39 seconds. After this one is over, backstage comments from both competitors. Kana mentions that she does not recognize Yamashita as the ace of the company. Some really strong comments there from Kana. And Ayumi mentions that she is very excited to kind of draw a line under her music career and begin her wrestling career. Interesting comments, kind of knowing now, like hindsight being 2020, that she doesn't stick around with wrestling for too long. Now, the one match on this show that I was able to seek out was the tag team match here, where we had multiple debuts take place. The team of Nonoko and Yuka Sakazaki, both making their debut, teamed up to face Shoko Nakajima and Erika Ura. Also, Erika kind of making her debut. From my understanding, Erika is like a model, idol, singer, just like a general talent that had occasionally wrestled it before, but it was like very sporadically. So it seems like your stereotypical like outsider that is being brought in to kind of bolster up this show in terms of bodies that can help with wrestling, but then also name value and kind of getting the word out there a little bit. Yuka comes out first, and Yuka is like unrecognizable. She does smile and hit her thumbs up pose, and like at that moment I was like, okay, I can see Yuka in there, but based on like her appearance and her gear, totally unrecognizable. She does have a couple like Yuka mannerisms, is the best way I could describe it too. Nanoko comes out, and like the best way I could describe Nanoko, if you're unfamiliar with her, is like think Mina Shirakawa, but like a little less flaunty. She's very interested in her body, is the way I would describe it. The most like politically correct PG way I can describe it. Not as in your face as Mina, but definitely cut from the same cloth. Of course, we know Yuka graduates from TJPW at the end of 2023, still making some sporadic appearances, though she was just at the January 4th show in 2025, or excuse me, 2026. Don't even know what year it is, especially as we're rewinding all the way back to 2013. And then with Nonoko, Nonoko does stick around for a little bit. She does graduate from TJPW in 2018. Shoko enters with some new music, and it's kind of similar to what her current music is. It's not 100% the same thing, but you can see that progression slowly starting to take place. Ura comes in wearing jean shorts, and she didn't look like she was ready to wrestle, but again, doesn't wrestle too much, right? She's kind of coming from that entertainment actor, singer world, so we'll give her a little bit of a break. There was a fair amount of comedy in this match that was centered around like Nanoko's anatomy is the best way I would say that. And then the other women's lack thereof. That was kind of like the basis for the majority of this match. That I guess becomes Nanoko's character. Again, like I say, think Mina Shirakawa, like that sexy, flaunt it kind of, shake what your mama gave you, I guess, is a kind of like the phrase that people would use. Yuka and Shoko square off a little bit here, and between all the comedy, you can kind of see like flashes of what both of them are going to become. Here, they're both very green, but like as you watch this match, some of the moves that Shoko is doing is like not in the repertoire or should not be in the repertoire of someone who debuted like 6 months prior. And Yuka making her debut here also looked really, really strong as a competitor too. Ura didn't look too bad either. I kind of was getting like Kamiyu vibes from her, or maybe like Saki Akai vibes. Maybe a little bit less skilled when it came to wrestling, but Ura did not perform badly at all here. Nonoko ends up winning this match for her team, pinning Shoko Nakajima with a move that she calls the Pie Fly Flow at 10 minutes even. Basically, it's like a much lower to the ground version of the High Fly Flow, and she claims that the Pie Fly Flow is a completely original move, that she has not stolen it from anybody. Backstage, Nakajima was upset that she lost a match to her juniors. Ura said that she would love to come back and wrestle whenever she is invited. And then Yuka and Nonoko give some comments together. They are excited that they won. Nonoko mentions that she is recruiting a boyfriend, even though that is apparently prohibited. TJPW at the time using the three prohibitions. I don't know if that's what you call it, but the smoking, drinking, and relationships. But she does say that she's looking for a boyfriend or recruiting for a boyfriend, and that she's also looking for a gym sponsor because she is too poor to afford a gym membership. So, Nanoko, this was my first experience with Nanoko, and she was really funny inside and outside of the ring. I would love to kind of watch a little bit more of her career. Obviously, she's around through 2018, so there's quite a bit of she's around for quite a while, so perhaps we'll watch some more Nanoko matches on a future rewind. And then the main event of this one was a singles match, Yamashita taking on Kiba. This was the match that was designed to determine who the ace of the company was. Again, not one that is readily available, so all I can go on is just the show notes that we have. Yamashita wins this with the Crash Rabbit Heat in 6 minutes and 54 seconds. Afterward, Yamashita proclaims herself the ace of the company, and she issues a challenge to Nanoko. She says, "Why is this woman always in all of the papers? Why is she on the TV shows? Like, I'm the ace. Why is nobody looking at me? Why is everybody looking at Nanoko?" Well, Nanoko can probably tell you there's two main reasons for that, but we end up closing out the show with Kiba, actually, of all people. Chikage Kiba closes this one out alongside Yamashita, and they basically just plug their upcoming show on January 18th. There are some backstage comments as well. Yamashita officially names her maneuver the Crash Rabbit Heat, so it is at this show where we get the inception of the Crash Rabbit Heat. She said that she is ready to kick Nanoko's big chest with it, which I thought was kind of funny. Kiba was very happy with the launch, that the launch show went well. She was upset that she did lose, though, in the main event. Kota is also there to give some comments. He provided a very realistic assessment of the first show. He mentioned wanting to increase their roster size as an immediate goal for the company, and he confirmed that they will proceed with this kind of combination of wrestling and idol performances for two reasons. One, to kind of fill out the runtime of the show. Their roster isn't big enough yet to put on a full-length wrestling show only. And then also as a way to differentiate themselves from other competition that are taking off around this time. Stardom started around this time as well, maybe a little bit before. So what way to differentiate yourself from other Joshi wrestling companies out there? Well, provide something different, provide a little bit of a buffet style, if you will. And we know that this is still true today. TJPW today, very ingrained with idols. Obviously, they have the in-house Up girls. Overall, it's a little bit of a bummer that the full show wasn't readily available, especially after I was like kind of gearing up watching all of these shows in advance. But that being said, it was a lot of fun to chart this story arc from the very first January pre-event show, all the way up into that quote-unquote official debut show in the ring in December. You can really see a lot of what makes TJPW what it is today present, like all the way back here in 2013. The integration of idol groups, the comedy, specifically here with Nanoko, but we'll come to see a different style of comedy throughout the years. Of course, Mina Shirakawa made her way through TJPW, but all the way up today with the Iron Man title, with Raku, with Hyper Misao, right? Also, a lot of strong competitors in the ring, the likes of Yamashita, Nakajima, Sakazaki, already within just a few short months, making themselves known as really strong between the ropes wrestlers. A lot of familiar faces from day one. Yamashita, Tetsuya Kota is here from day one. Daisuke Kiso is here from day one, wrestling, or I guess like Sambo wrestling at that very first show. It's very clear that Yamashita is kind of at the top of the totem pole. Obviously, she won this match and is declaring herself the ace, but really, as we chart the very first year of TJPW, she was in that first main event. She has a victory in that very first main event back in January. So it's clear that Yamashita was like number one from the get-go. I would say followed shortly by Kiba. I would think that Kiba would be next in line, just given the year that she had, the record that she had. And then I would say probably third, Kana. Even though Kana was featured just as prominently as Kiba and Yamashita, but Kana just won a little bit less. Following those main three, then I would be inclined to put Nakajima, given that she was the fourth of the original four trainees that debuted, but Nanoko was really quickly passing her by here in her debut. She pinned her in that tag team match, and then she was immediately called out to face the ace of the company, so I kind of want to put Shoko fourth, but then part of me is like, well, Nanoko is kind of in that fast lane, passing her by right from the get-go. And then towards the bottom of that totem pole, you have Yuka Sakazaki, who I imagine is going to like skyrocket upwards really fast. You have Ayumi, although Ayumi doesn't stick around for very long. And then the soon-to-debut Eren, who was introduced at this show. The soon-to-debut Rika Tatsumi, who we also know immediately skyrockets up that totem pole. So a lot of interesting things to look forward to on the horizon. Really fun introductory year for TJPW from January all the way up through this in-ring show on December 1st. And with that, grab your cold spray and your ice packs because that brings us to the end of this month's bonus episode. I thought that was a lot of fun. I actually enjoyed that rewind a little bit more than I thought I would. I hope you did too, and if you did, hit that subscribe button wherever you get your podcasts for future bonus episodes covering rewinds, interviews, in-person shows, looking at you, Texas, and of course, the weekly Tokyo Joshi Pod dropping every Friday where we cover the recent news, shows, and some of the graduates as well. You can follow our show on social media at Tokyo Joshi Pod on Instagram, TikTok, and X. You can also drop us an email, tokyojoshipod@gmail.com. But above all else, remember to keep your hearts burning, stay magical, my friends, and we'll see you next time on the Tokyo Joshi Pod.